about LMSs and learning management systems and how we might be able to use those in the classroom most effectively. As we go along, let me just introduce myself just a little bit. Stacy Johnson and I are the authors of the series called Stand Out. It's a 6-level series. It looks like quite a few of you use it, and that's wonderful. We have always concentrated in our books for the last 20 years on having a lot of good classroom pedagogy. We introduced, for example, lesson planning in the classroom. Obviously, we didn't introduce that, but in textbooks for adult education and ESL, we introduced the idea that books should be designed around lesson planning. Task-based learning is very important to us. Critical thinking is very important to us. All of these things are super important. Standout has some great innovations. We have video, for example, and we have life skill videos as well as National Geographic videos. We have a lot of other things. For example, our worksheets. We're the first in the industry to do worksheets. We have a couple thousand worksheets for the Standout series that are customizable. So you can download them in Microsoft Word, change them around, put other put other names and vocabulary or change things completely. So we're going to show you some innovations in that today as well. We'll talk a little bit about worksheets as we move forward. Today, actually, what we'll be talking about is what is LMS? What is an LMS? You've heard me say it, learning management system, but what exactly is that and what do you do with that? When we went to remote instruction, I was in the classroom and it was a big challenge. And I also got a lot of calls from a lot of teachers and we kind of worked out some of those challenges together. Of course, some of the main challenges with remote instruction is the technology itself. We're not going to be talking about the technology itself too much. We're not going to be talking about how to help students become more digitally literate. That's a whole nother workshop, and that's something we can do. But we're going to be talking about other challenges, and I'll explain that as we get a little deeper into this presentation. Then we're going to talk about what LMS and textbooks actually do to help us meet the challenges, specifically how Standout helps us meet those challenges. And finally, we will talk about textbooks and language management systems. And then I will take, for the last little bit, we'll talk about, I will actually show you the Canvas shells that we've done for Standout and some other great things and tools and resources that you might be able to use that you might enjoy to make your instruction a little bit easier and hopefully also meet some of those challenges that you may not have considered up to now, but I'm hoping that you take note of some of these things that I consider challenges in remote instruction that because of all the technology issues, we don't talk so much about those other ones. So I keep saying language management system. I mean learning management system. So if I say it wrong, I see it on the chat. If I say it wrong, please forgive me. Learning management system. It's used in a lot more than just language learning. In fact, it's used in business as well. So what exactly is an LMS? A learning management system. There are a lot of benefits to it. We're going to talk about those in a minute. Most of you know what LMS is, or a lot of you do, but some of you don't. So I always in my workshops try to start from the beginning and make sure that we're not leaving people behind because they haven't heard a term or something else. So bear with me if you know all about this already, but a learning management system is a software program that we use to help manage our class. You've seen management systems, common ones like Blackboard, Moodle, and Canvas. Those are some. Google has one. There are a lot of different ones. Some of them are free, some of them cost money. You can get a free Canvas account, and we're going to be talking specifically about Canvas. I have a free Canvas account because I'm not associated with the school anymore. I did have my own school account, and now I have my own personal one, but I don't pay any money for it. So you'll be able to develop some ideas from this. I know that the biggest issue that a lot of teachers have when we start talking about language management systems is, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. And some of you are going through hundreds of hours of instruction to learn how to use it and learn what to do with it. And when I took the first training a little while ago, I took the first training, we call it at Santa Ana College, we call it the bronze training. They never explained to me what an LMS was. I knew what it was, and I was able to go through it pretty quickly. But when I got through, I wasn't sure I knew exactly how it functioned. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we get deeper in. But here's my little definition. A learning management system is a software program that provides the opportunity for instructors to organize, implement, track, and otherwise manage instruction virtually, in person, or both. Some people have the misconception that this is only for online instruction, and that is not the case. In fact, the state of California is encouraging colleges throughout California to use Canvas, and whether or not they're in online or not. In fact, there's even deeper training for a pure online course. This is usually, a lot of people are going remote and they're using Canvas to keep organized and to manage so the students can find information. It provides content to students as well as syllabuses, or syllabi if you want to say that, instructor expectations, rubrics, assessments, and a myriad of other applications such as video and virtual practice. It helps manage what we're doing, but it also provides content. And that's the issue, right? Actually having content to put in there. How do you choose what content to use? How are you going to spend your time if you have face-to-face, which a lot of us do, you know, if you're using Zoom, or if you're in the classroom and you know, after all of this is over, you still will want to use Canvas. At least I would recommend it. And in California, they're recommending it. So how do we actually, how do we actually decide what goes into the shell in Canvas or any other learning management system, and how do we use it? So let's move on. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm going to look at the chat for a minute. And first of all, a lot of you have used learning management systems now. What are some benefits of using it? Why would you use it? So just throw out some ideas and see what you think. Okay, organize information for class. That's great. What else might we do? Deliver content to students. Students can access anytime. Oh, I like that. Yes, anytime, right? Easy grading. Sure. So you see what the students are doing. You don't have to collect papers and then go through them later. You can see it right on screen. Students can access material. True. And they can access it over and over. Wow, we're getting a lot now. Student data information. Sure. And you can even take attendance on if it's set up that way. Grading, absolutely. Lesson tracking, very good. Students can access all the course info in one place. Great interaction, okay, good. Yes, you can have discussions. You can have students commenting on each other's work. You can have collaborations. If you join up with a Google collaboration, you can have teamwork and projects. You can do all sorts of things. It's also you can also have Zoom lessons and stuff that are connected directly to your LMS. Easy to add videos. Excellent. Wonderful. So those are some of the ideas. I'm going to show you mine. And as I show you mine, it's not an exhaustive list. In fact, some of you had more things than I had put down, but students know their overall expectations. students can see the organization of the class. It begins, if you are organized in the way you put it together and you present it, it becomes very clear what the students need to learn and what to do. If we're in the classroom and we're not using a learning management system, you will be sometimes you might feel like students might feel like, what exactly are they trying to learn? What are they supposed to know? And we always push that you put on the board the agenda and objective. Lessons that are objective driven are really important. We don't just do a bunch of activities. For 20 years, we've been trying to overcome some of those things that we did years before. So before the turn of the century, there was this notion, and it had its place. The natural approach had its place, and it's still important. But where if you just go into class and start talking about current events, the students will learn. But without any kind of scaffolding and objectives, it becomes very difficult to be able to establish what they're learning. So students come away saying, well, you say, what did you learn? And they say, I really don't know what I learned. Kind of like when your kids come home from school and you say, what did you learn today? Oh, nothing, Ma. Well, why are we going to school if you're not learning anything, right? So they are learning a lot of times, but they don't know what they're learning. So if we have an objective, we can assess it and we can follow through on it. So it really helps us to put that in perspective for the students so they can see what's expected. Students can work ahead if they want to, and if you want them to, they can move forward. They can, it can help prepare students for the class. Many of you have heard about flipped classrooms. Well, a flipped classroom would be when we try to actually present a lot of the information at home to the students. And a lot of people use video and people use all sorts of different things. But basically, it just means come to class with a certain amount of knowledge that you prepared for. Instead of homework, or as well as homework, you can do activities before you come to class. And that's going to come, you're going to see that that's very important as we show you the Canvas shells. Before you come to class, we're going to say, what do I need to learn? Or what do I want my students to learn so that when they come to class, they're more prepared? And then we can spend more time with interaction, with different types of activities. We can reinforce, if it's grammar, for example, and they practice the grammar ahead of time, then when they get into the classroom, we can reinforce that grammar instead of starting from square one. A learning management system can provide homework assignments. So we're talking about before class and after class, there's activities that we can do. You'll notice, and I'm sure you have already, that if you're using any kind of program, I don't know if you've noticed it with Canvas or other programs that you're using, but there's a lot of programs online that allow the students to do over and over do activities. If you're using quizzes, for example, on Canvas, they can go through it and do it over and over and over again until they understand, and they can make their corrections, and they can begin to learn. So, and we find that students spend a lot of time, a lot of students, not all, but a lot of students will spend a lot of time reviewing and going over the same activity again and again. And that's another great thing that's not here, but you can monitor time on task. I don't think I had that on here. Oh, I do. It's the next level. So students can practice things over and over. Students can take advantage of online resources through links. So you say, you don't have to give them a whole bunch of websites at home. Say, go home and do all these different websites. No, you just have links. They can click on them. So if they're associated with Canvas, if they're in the classroom, a regular face-to-face classroom, Canvas still can be important because they have everything at their fingertips, as some of you mentioned when I asked the question. It helps us stay organized. It helps track student efforts. Again, quizzes and test students and evaluate students in class progress so you can see how they're doing. And you can communicate with students 24/7. So that's a great thing. Now I have a little brackets here. Can someone tell me, and go ahead on the chat, can anybody tell me how I've divided these up? So there's two different brackets. And so why are there two different brackets? If you were to label the brackets, what would you label them? Anybody have an idea? I'll give you just a second. If nobody answers, I will answer. Student and teacher use, focus versus student tools. Yes, okay, good. Student versus teacher, benefits of students, benefits to instructors. Good, okay, yes. So the way I look at it is it's learning management system. So the top ones are the learning and the bottom are management. So when we think about a learning management system, I think sometimes we think so much about management that we don't think about learning. And look how many things I have for learning. Now there's, of course, there's more of everything, but the idea here is that don't lose sight of learning. Don't lose sight of the fact that we need to put, pedagogically speaking, we need to put our activities together so they make sense, so they scaffold to the next thing, so we prepare the students, okay? So please think about this as you're going through. Don't get caught up with just the management. It's so easy to do that, but think about not only the content, but where the content is. I remember years ago, every CATESOL and TESOL and other conferences that I went to, I would notice, way before I wrote books and things, I would notice that all the workshops that were about activities, that say, hey, activities you can use tomorrow, those were crammed full of people. And, you know, people were sitting on the floor, standing up in the back, all over the place. Those were the most popular. And they're, for the most part, are still very popular. But they never talked about when to use an activity and how to use an activity. They just talked about activities. The days are past where we used to have file cabinets and we had, you know, files and files. Some of you know about this. You have files and files of documents. And so we'd be ready for any activity and we just keep the class going and we fill the class up with time. We really need to think more intentionally about the activities we do and why we do them. That's the nature of it all. So I'm going to talk about now some of the pedagogical challenges to remote instruction. And I think that this is really important because we get so hung up, again, I'm sorry to keep saying that, but we get so hung up on the system itself, and we worry about students getting on, that we just start throwing activities at them. And we need to think about these things. So here are my biggest concerns, and I hope they become your biggest concern too. And that's kind of the momentum that I hope to establish by this presentation, that we want to start thinking about how we are doing it and how we're using our learning management system. Some of the challenges, I don't see, you know, as I talk to people, and I don't get the sense, I shouldn't say, I don't know how you're doing, but my sense is that we're going backwards in terms of pedagogy because we're throwing stuff out to fill up an hour on our Zoom, for example. But we need to have activities that are set with lesson planning, scaffolding, and we're not going to talk about lesson planning specifically today, but you'll get the idea. Scaffolding and building towards an application. Filling time at the expense of planning is the problem. We don't want to do that. We want to plan. Multiple activities with no real progression is what we used to exist. So that's my biggest one of my biggest concerns. Another one is a lack of solid objectives. Now, the language management system should help us to be able to do that. We have a place that we can put, okay, this activity is for this reason. But if we're not identifying to the students why we're doing every activity, then they're left to themselves. When we're in the classroom, it becomes a little bit easier because we're teaching our class. And if the students seem a little bewildered by why we're doing this activity, you tell them. Or what I always do when I'm teaching my classes, I say, we're doing this activity for this reason. In fact, in my classes, I think my students could teach lesson planning as well as I can. They know what stage of the lesson plan we're in because I keep telling them why we're doing what we're doing. Oh, this is the presentation, I understand. And then we're going to practice, and then we're going to evaluate, and then we're going to eventually have an application. So, but there's a reason. By the end of class, students will be able to do what? We need to put that in our shells. We need to put that in every activity so students know. We're not because we have Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle or any of those others, that doesn't take the place of actually expressing an agenda to our students so they know what we're doing that day. Remote instruction is hard to do, even with Zoom. It's hard to do as much interaction as we're used to in the classroom. And because of that, a lot of times we abandon learner-centered activities for teacher-centered, where the teacher is talking all the time and the students are just kind of, in fact, some teachers I know have everybody on mute for almost the entire class. We need to have some interaction. And I know that's a problem. If you're doing Zoom, that's a problem. But as we do this remote instruction, we need to find ways to incorporate different things in Canvas and face-to-face, meaning right now Zoom or whatever program that you're using. So we need to be able to do that. And then we mentioned before, time on task. When you're in the classroom and students don't seem to quite get it, we do more. If students don't, if we evaluate what we're doing and we say, oh, the students don't quite get it, I'm going to do a little more, or I'm going to do another practice because they didn't quite get to where we are here. So these are the kind of things that we're used to in the classroom. But now that we're out of the classroom, we do an activity. Okay, it's time to go on to the next activity. And we need to check for understanding. We need to work on all of the different things that we have learned in our education and through experience in the classroom. We need to incorporate, whether it's in the classroom, it's in a learning management system, or it's in a Zoom meeting. So these are the things that concern me the most. If you were to, if you had to prioritize these, what would you think is the most important thing of this list of five? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of this list of five, what would you consider something? Well, let's say it this way. What would you consider something that you really think you might work on a little bit more? So could you just name one thing that you think you should work on? Or if you're doing all of these things, just say, I'm doing all of these things, and that's great. But could you just put that in your chat real quick and tell me if there's anything specific? I'm glad that your students are required to have the cameras up and chat open. Okay. Okay, lesson planning, good. Four and five, all right. Test-based activities, solid objectives. Good, I'm glad to see this because that's kind of like my, the thing that I really believe in. And hopefully you're thinking about that. Yes, time on task, good. Number 5, time on task, all right. Some of you're working on interaction, and that's hard. Yeah, good. I'm glad that you're thinking about these things. That's the most important thing. Yes, thank goodness for breakout rooms. Make sure you manage those as you do it. Good, good. Building towards an application. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad to see your responses, because I get worried that we get so caught up in all our issues and problems that sometimes we miss some of these most important things. So thank you very much for those responses. And I know we have limited time. That's why we need to move on to Canvas. But let's just look at this for a minute. Now I'm going to introduce a standout here. And we're getting closer to the time when we're going to actually be looking at the shells. But before we look at the shells, I want you to understand the philosophy behind what we did as we developed them. So these are the things that we just talked about: lack of solid lesson plan, lack of solid objectives. If you're using Standout, and I say specifically Standout, other books do some of these things, but I'm of course biased, but I just think this Standout does it better than any other books. We really are, the whole books were written with lesson plan progression first. We didn't write the book pages, we wrote lesson plans. So Stacy and I spent a full summer writing lesson plans, and we wrote, at the time there were only 4 levels, now there's 6, but we wrote 350 lesson plans. And then we said, now what resources do we need on a book page to help us do these lesson plans? Because we started with objectives and moved towards lesson planning, and we built scaffolding in. So it's all there. There's not an activity in Standout, and I can say this with a lot of confidence. There's not one activity in Standout that doesn't have a purpose. Every activity has a purpose. Now, you may decide, but there's 3 practices for every lesson. So you may decide that you're only going to do 2 of them. That's okay. But there is a purpose. There's a reason for the progression. So every lesson has an objective, and you'll see it on the page. It's called a goal for the students, but you'll see it on the page. And it says, the goal for today is that you're going to learn to read a classified ad, or you're going to learn to communicate on the phone, or write a letter to a landlord, or whatever it is. So it doesn't say learn, but it says you're going to do something and be able to do it. So that's where the application comes in, because it's backward design. So you're working from the back up. You look at the application. This is what I want my students to do. That's expressed in the objective. And then what do we need to do to get there? So if you're using a book, if you're using Standout, you have these things. You have collaboration on every lesson. There's a lot of collaboration, 2, 3, 4. There's critical thinking in every lesson, 2, 3, 4 times. All of the activities are task-based. Students are actually doing things. So those of you that use Standout, you know that. And then we have those worksheets to reinforce instruction. Now, so if Standout will do these things, and the learning management system will help us keep organized and give us content we have the content of Standout, and we have the organization of the learning management system. What we need to do is learn how to merge those 2 things. And that was the task that I took on, and Stacy and I took on in middle of July. Or actually the beginning of July. And we've been working on it ever since. Book 2, we've done book 5, book 4, book 3. Book 2 is almost done. And that'll be out in just a week or 2, or a week. And yes, within the week, that'll be done. And we'll get 1 and basic done pretty soon. But I wanted to show you this because as you see these things, we just have to figure out what's the best way to use it. So when we started doing this, I had a lot of questions. I didn't just start saying, hell, this activity should go here, this activity should go there. I had a lot of questions. So I had to answer these questions before I could actually do any writing. Who will use the Canvas shell? So in our In California, for example, community colleges are using it. Some adult education programs are using it. It doesn't have to be Canvas. It could be any learning management system. But in this case, because I wrote it for Canvas, this is specifically the question: who's going to be using it? Will adult education programs use it? And then what circumstances? Can it be used in class, out of class? Will they use it after the pandemic, when we're all back face to face? Will it be useful for our students then? And then I thought, okay, how can I incorporate content into Canvas so that it supports solid lesson planning? So that's the idea. I don't want to take away from solid lesson planning. I want to support it. So I don't want to just throw any activity in there. We didn't put new activities in. These are all activities from Standout, but which activities am I going to use? How can the Canvas shell support instruction already found in Standout? So how does it do that? What Standout content can be done before and after class? Well, we mentioned that before. You got homework and you got the flipped classroom idea. So these are the kind of things that we want to be thinking about. What are activities that are best done with the instructor? What are activities that can be done without an instructor? So I had to ask all these questions before I got started and before I figured out how to organize Standout into Canvas. So this is kind of a neat idea because it helps us to see how everything fits together. And then the other thing I had to consider was, well, what kind of activities can I have in Canvas? So in Canvas and in the sample that I'll show you today, in the shell that I'll show you today, we can talk about these 5 type of activities. So you have these choices, and these banners come right from Canvas. So there are a billion different banners. You can add any kind of banner you want. What's nice about the Canvas shells that we're going to show you is that they are all editable. You're just going to be able to do anything you want with them. So if you don't like something, or if you want to change banners or whatever, you're certainly welcome to do that. You can do anything you want with them. You can add activities, take activities away, change things. But we've given you this basic template so that it's all done for you. So you don't have to do a lot of extra work, and then you can just add your own personal touch as you go. But there's discussions in Canvas, and I'm going to talk specifically about Canvas now. Discussions in Canvas is a place like a blog. So the way we've done it is that if there's a question in Standout that is a great introductory thing to a lesson, for example, you'll see most discussions at the beginning of a lesson. And those discussions will have various questions. And then the students will answer those questions in a blog type setting. And others will respond to those discussion questions as they go along. So there'll be this discussion back and forth between different students about their opinion about something. And it's always about an opinion or an idea, even at the lowest levels. Now we're going to be working on that, but as we get through, we'll get to that. Assignments are great. There's lots of ways to do it. Most of the assignments that we have set up, the students don't have to attach anything. All they have to do is type right in. So it'll say submit assignment. They click on it and up comes a place for them to type. So it's similar to discussions, except for it's not going back and forth like a blog. They'll just do an assignment, whether it's a paragraph. In the highest levels, it might be multiple paragraphs. It could be just definitions, and they could be writing definitions for different words. Whatever it is, that's an assignment. So they write the assignment and they get that all done. Quizzes quizzes, I wish they didn't call these quizzes because they don't have to sound like a test. They're not necessarily a test. It's just something that the students can practice, like in a book. If you have a fill-in, an activity that you're filling in the vocabulary word or the grammar. So it's not necessarily like a quiz. It's more like a practice. There are quizzes in the Canvas that we're going to show you too. But when you see the word quizzes, don't be afraid, and don't let your students be afraid. It's just a place for them to practice, and they can do things continually and over again. And then projects, there's one project. It's called a team project in every unit. So after every 5 lessons, there's a team project. And in that team project, you can do a lot of things. I'm running short on time, I see, so I'm going to talk a little bit faster. Let's get into it. And then I'm going to open it up so you can actually see it. But this is the structure that we've decided on. We are always associated directly with the book. So we'll give you the page numbers of the books, always relate back to the books. We always have the objective. If you click on this, you'll see the objective and the list of resources. That's at the beginning of every lesson. So this is Unit 1, Lesson 2. And then this is Lesson 2. This is the first activity. And it says write definitions. And if you look at this little thing here, this tells us that it's going to be an assignment. And what we tried to do is we tried to make it so you have an or something before class and then a second one after class. And we put a little asterisk. It's very minimal, but we put a little asterisk, meaning, and we didn't want to tell you what to do, but the suggestion is that you would do this after class. So this would be before class and this would be after class. And then we have extra resources. So all of those worksheets are available. Now we've made them PDF. You still can go online and you can change them around, but we've made them PDF. And not only that, they're fillable PDF. So the students can actually type into them and then post them back to you. So you have them all there. There's hundreds of those. So you have an opportunity to go on. So we love this little feature because there's so much that you can do with these extra activities. All right, so let's go on and actually do a tour. So to do that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second so I can start sharing again. And I want to show you quickly, like in 5 minutes, the book itself. One of the things that you have when you get Standout is you get a what's called a classroom presentation tool, which is fantastic when you're using Zoom, but it's also fantastic for when you are when you're in the classroom. If you have a smart board or another type of projection device, you can have this available so the students can follow along on every page in the book. And it also has all the audio. And so you can see all of that. So we're going to go to, we're in book 3. We're going to go to unit 4. And we're going to go to lesson 4. And if you look here, first of all, you can have it 2 pages or 1 page. We're just going to have it as 1 page. You can't see this, but I need to move this out of the way. Okay. So one of the nice features about this, if it's too small, is that you can increase it to as much as you want. And then you just decrease it again by clicking on the negative button over to the right. You can highlight things, you can type on things, you can write things. There's all sorts of things that you can do with this. So as we're going through, you can see this first activity. The listening is a great thing that we want students to do more of. So if we were to, if this particular lesson starts with listening, why not put that in Canvas so that they've already done the listening and they've already done this activity? And so you're going to see in a minute that this is one of the first activities that's in the Canvas shell. So this is the before class. So they're actually listening over and over, and they will listen a lot of times before they can put these statements into the right order. They'll probably listen to it 3, 4, 5 times if they're not opening their books and reading. So, and some of these don't have any reading to go along with them, so that makes it a little bit easier. Then you'll see that there's grammar here. So as we look at the different grammar, if we didn't have that great listening at the beginning, we might have them do the grammar so they get more involved in that. So when you teach them the grammar, they're getting a little bit more activities or more experience with that. And then at the very end, it says, think of things you did yesterday and the order in which you did them. Write 3 sentences using before, after, or when to talk about your day. This is your application. So let's just go back for just a second and look at the goal. By the end of class, students will be able to identify daily activities. That's your objective, and this is your application. So they're actually doing that, all right? I hope that makes sense to you, because now we're gonna open up Canvas and we're gonna see the treatment of this particular lesson, all right? So I'm gonna stop sharing one more time. I don't know, you see, stop sharing, and then I'm going to start sharing again. What am I going to share? I'm going to share. My computer's doing funny things. Okay. All right. Here's our Canvas shell. Let me start at the beginning. Here's home. Now, Joy, can you confirm that this is being seen? Can you see?
Sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, so this is the Canvas shell. This is book 3. Notice that we have all of this on the side that you can choose from, so we can go to different places. Oh, this is mine. So you want to see it in student view. So I hate the color of the student view. It doesn't look as pretty, but I'm putting it up here because now you're going to see what the students see. All right, so this is the student view. This is for, this is intermediate low. This is the standout book 3. I have lots of things I can do. I can go right to the modules, but we're going to go to the table of contents. And here I'm going to go to unit 4 because that's the one we just looked at on standout. So here we are at unit 4, and we're going to go to lesson 4. I want to show you a couple things before we go to lesson 4. Notice here that this is the unit opener. So at the beginning of every unit in Standout, we have a beautiful National Geographic picture. And the students will be able to see what is expected of them. There's 5 lessons, so every day is a different lesson. Ask for information, interpret charts, interpret a roadmap, identify daily activities is the one we're going to do, and describe a place. And this, if you remember, this is your discussion. Now in the lower levels, it may not be the same kind of discussion. So we're going to be working on that because this is the book 3. So this is intermediate. And then they're going to be talking about this picture. So we have some questions about the picture. They come on and they're going to click on reply. You notice it's very clear. It says, look at the picture and answer the following questions by clicking on reply. Remember, that's what the discussion is. It's a questions. We write reply and the students will be able to answer. We're just going to go on from there. And you'll see this is lesson 1. I'm going to go back to my modules so you can see this again. Let's get to module unit 4. Now I'm not going the regular way, so I'm not using the table of contents, so I'm going to have to scroll down. One of the things that you're going to notice as you see this is, and you may not notice this little subtle stuff, but this is a quiz. This is an assignment, and discussions look like this with the 2 little things. That you might have a little screen, you may not be able to see it, but that's the idea. So we're going to go into lesson 4. So the first thing the students see when they come in is they're going to see that we have what they're going to do. By the end of class, you will identify daily activities. This is your objective. For the teacher, and again, you can change anything you want. You can add things to this. This is all totally customizable, but there's information for the teacher, and that'll help the students too, those students that are savvy enough to pick this up. Adverbial time clauses, phrasing. These are some vocabulary words. And then you've got the worksheets and the workbook itself, which you can also use, and an audio CD. So these are things that you can do. So the student will pick next. And our first activity is that, if you remember, is that picture and the paragraph. And so the students are going to listen, and they will answer questions. So the first thing they do, it says, click on take the quiz. So I'm going to click on this, and we're going to fail this quiz. But the idea is we would just click on, and I'm not sure if when I shared the screen, if I clicked on audio. So let's make sure, let's see if this will work. But they can click on this and listen to it over and over again. It's all there for them.
Yesterday was a busy day. After I went for an early morning run.
So they have to put this in order. So you're going to have to put numbers here, 1, 2, 3. Now this is level 3. We're not going to ask them to do something quite this difficult in levels 1 and 2 or basic, but that's the idea. So they have to do that, and then they submit the quiz. We're going to fail the quiz. But if you were to take the quiz, you can have as many times as you want. And we got everything wrong, but it'll tell you which ones are right. And then they can go back and say, okay, I got to do this again. And they try to do it again and again. And so they can do it as many times as they want. So most likely they'll listen to this 4 or 5 times, which is a lot more than we would in the classroom. And it's at home. They're doing this at home before class. So this is the idea. This lesson is before class to prepare them. And then the next activity is after class. So we remember the grammar in the book. So it's all associated with the book. They have to have the book to be able to do this. One of the things that we want to do is we want to make this work with the book, not separate from the book. The whole book is not here. That's not the objective of this. So you in class will teach the grammar. You can do activities with them. You can do all sorts of things, whether it's Zoom or in the class itself. Use the book. You can use the classroom presentation tool to do it, just like you would in the classroom. And then we ask them to do the application. Well, application we usually do in the classroom if we're in the classroom because we want to see that they're doing it. But this gives them an opportunity to reinforce what they've learned, and you can monitor what they've done. So that's another this is a great activity for them. So they have to write the 3 sentences using before, after, and when. And all they do is click on this. This stays up, and then they start typing. Okay, so here's this and that and the other. I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to write a real sentence at this point, but that's the idea. They submit the assignment. You have access to it. You can check it, and everybody's happy, and the students are wiser and smarter and more prepared for the next class because they just did a homework assignment. All right. Then at the very end, you have all sorts of other options, and the students have these options too. And this is a great thing, okay? So if you have a workbook, now there's an online workbook and there's a print page workbook. This is the print. You can have them do this for a homework. Those are 3-page long assignments. This is not in Canvas. It just says do the workbook and do the assignment. There are answer keys. You could put the answer key in here if you would like. You can put it in as a file. So if you have any problems with that, just email me. I'll tell you how to do it. But you just put the file in here. If you want to have the answer keys, you could actually put them in here physically yourself. We didn't do that, but you're welcome to do that. There's something called the online workbook. And the online workbook, you have to pay extra money, and it's a little bit different. But if you click on this, it'll take you to that page. And then the students will put in their username and password, and they could do additional activities, which are fantastic. In itself, the online workbook is wonderful. It it is a great tool, and I would, if your school can afford it, I would do it. Students can buy their own individual account if they want to as well. So that can, I'm not sure how much that costs. Joy can help us with that, but it's not ridiculously expensive. And if students want to spend the money doing that, they certainly can. And then you have your activity bank worksheets. Your activity bank worksheets, I was telling you, are customizable, but here in Canvas, they are not. Okay, so this, it tells you how to do it. They would have to click on this, they download it, they type into it, they save it, and they put it back onto Canvas, and then you have it. Let me just show you what it looks like. There's a little thing so you can just see it and say, hey, I want you to do this extra activity for homework, or no, you don't have to do it. If you want to do it, it's fine, but you don't have to send it to me, or whatever you want. Here, I can just, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I can download it, and then I can just type right into it information. So I can just start typing. So that's kind of a neat little gizmo there. So the worksheets are fantastic because they just have that added activities. So your students have an unlimited amount. You don't have to go online and start looking for a lot of activities because they're all right here. So if you feel like they need a little bit of extra boost or a little bit of extra work, or maybe you don't have the workbooks, you have these worksheets. And this is a smaller one, but there's often 3 or 4, even 5 or 6 pages of worksheets. And they're not all grammar. This one happens to be grammar, but they're vocabulary and everything else you're learning. So those are all really great things. And then this last page is basically just takes you to the website. And on the website, they can, students can look at the audio and the video. So there is video that goes with this. They can listen to all the audio. They can do quite a few things there online. So that's another great benefit. And then let me show you what comes at the end of the unit. So this is lesson 5. And so we can go through, I'm not going to take you the time to go through lesson 5 right now, but in this one we have, it's just a coincidence. It has another quiz. There's all sorts of different things. This one just happens to be a quiz. So I just went through lesson 5. So we have a before face-to-face, after face-to-face, and then the extra resources. And then at the end of the unit, let me show you. We're almost done. So at the end of the unit, so here's our, it doesn't matter which one. So here's unit 1, balancing life. We have the unit opener, and then we have lesson 1, before, or the statements of what the lesson's about, all your objectives, before class, after class, during class. So you have your progression here. This is a progression. What's in the middle is what you're doing in the classroom with the students. And then you have your additional resources. So you're going to do that again before your agenda, your before, after, and your activities. Again, you can change these around. You don't have to do what I chose, but it's all done for you. So it's kind of nice. Again, each one, before, after, before, after, before, after. And then we have additional practice. You have a video. Now the video, we decided not to put the actual link of the video here, but when you click on this, it goes right to the website, and then you can watch the video right from the website. And then after the video comes a quiz, which is the review. There's usually 4 or 5 activities here. Let's just see how many there are on this one. So they have these fill-ins, they have these, they have word banks where they put different words in, they have matching. So all of this comes from the review book. There's no new activities. Okay. So we're going to fail this quiz. Sorry, we're just going to fail because we don't have time to do any more. And just finishing up here. So here is a project. Remember I said there's one project. There's something called Canvas Collaboration, which is a great way to do projects. That's another workshop altogether, but you can do this in class. You can have them working together through Canvas collaboration is Google. So they can go to Google, and then they work together on a project, a team project. And finally, we have a reading and writing challenge, or reading challenge. And reading challenge in the higher levels are discussions. And we also have a National Geographic unedited, not Cengage, or not it's not National Geographic Learning, but National Geographic Video. So it's a little bit hard, but some students will want to watch it and see. So almost all of everyone except one so far in all of the books has a video, at least one. Some of them have multiple videos. So this is just a video here of this person. And she is a National Geographic explorer. And there's a great paragraph or series of paragraphs in the book that you read with the class, and to prepare them. Some of them will want to see that. So that's what you have. So then we go on to the next unit. So that's basically, let me go back. We're done, but I'm going to go back to my, if I can find it. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. Got it. Okay, so this is Standout in Canvas and how to use a learning management system. It includes all of those major concerns that I have always had about all that we can do with what we have going in the classroom with remote instruction, my concerns, but especially with all instruction. Are we planning? Are we lesson planning? Are we doing all of these things? These shells are available. I'll let Joey talk to you about where these shells are. And if you have any other questions, I'm open for questions.
Thanks so much, Rob. We appreciate it. For those of you asking how to find these shells, they are not in the common area on Canvas. They are only available through your sales representative. So I am putting that in the chat. The website, if you don't already know who your fabulous sales consultant is, you can find them easily by going to our website. I will put that in the chat right now. Some of the questions, Rob, have been around pacing and how, you know, that one person here, Mai, asked, if this was based on a class that met 5 days a week, what would you say for a class that met 1 day a week or for an hour and a half only? And how might you use these in a multi-level classroom?
Okay, so multi-level is a big challenge. But again, you would probably have to adjust the shells a little bit for a multi-level class. Online, those worksheets are multi-level. So you have an A, B, and C worksheet. So you could assign different worksheets to different students depending on their level. And you can have them go to the website instead of going to the PDF. You can create these PDFs also if you have Adobe Professional. So that's another thing that you can do. Pacing, the whole reason that I started thinking about Canvas and I did it the way I did it, or we did it the way we did it, was because of that specific thing, that some classes are like, if you're a community college and they're using Canvas, they may be 2 or 3 days a week. And so if there are fewer days a week, what is best to do in class and what's best to do outside of class? So for me, that's why we kind of set it up the way we did. You have opportunities to do things in the class and then other opportunities to do things outside of class. You can add to the outside of class. All you do is you just add another activity to, or 2 activities to your outside of class things. A lesson is designed for 1 day. You could choose to do 2 days if you feel really confident about your students and you think they're going to spend a lot of time. You could just take 2 days or 2 lessons per day so that you could go faster through the book. You could pick and choose which lessons you think are most important. We talk a lot about, and I know I'm talking too much, there's a lot of questions, but let me just, acceleration. And people misunderstand what acceleration is. It doesn't mean to talk really fast. What it means is that we choose what's most important for the students to benefit the students, and all the fluff or anything else we think is not as important, we put to the side, and we evaluate our students all the way through. So if you have fewer hours, you might choose to do some things and leave the rest up to just the students. So you could do, for example, if you have 2 days a week, you could choose 2 lessons that you think are most important in a 5 lessons group, and you could choose 2 of them and say, okay, we're going to do these 2 lessons, and the rest of them you just do at home. And then and they don't do everything in the book, they just do what you have there because you chose those 2 as the most important things. So there's a multi-level also is a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge on remote, and it's a challenge even not on remote, obviously. But that's why we have those worksheets. So you have multi-level. So you can go to the website to find those. Okay, other questions?
Thanks, Rob. Actually, we are seeing people drop off because we are actually at time. We appreciate all of you joining us today. Feel free to contact your sales consultant, myself, or Rob with questions. You will all receive a follow-up email with more information. So feel free to reply there with any questions. And thank you, Rob, for your time today. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking with it. All right. Take care.
Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.